What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. I would first like briefly to address the CIA's ongoing effort to discredit me and besmirch my name. Everything I said still holds regarding news organizations and the way true events play out. I don't know who wished on a monkey's paw here, but until the entire planet is irradiated glass, the pre-glowing will need to try a little bit harder. Today's video topic is the ongoing work situation. The advice I received, both on YouTube and from people after I asked their opinions about it, everyone seemed to converge on the same few points, and then the part I implemented. I strongly suspect this was a fluke, or this is a joke, but for this one part of this one skirmish, the segment of advice I implemented worked. Namely, secure the results, and those results will speak for themselves. But the reason this all is strange is it worked in a way I wasn't expecting it to. Based on my experiences, I had a strong feeling securing results, even good results, wouldn't win people over. That doesn't win people over. And it didn't win people over. That's what fascinates me about all this. The effort and the results were not what secured the win in this small piece. It was a consequence of going that route. That former president wanted to keep me in this cycle of irritation and stagnation, preventing me from getting the job done. Demand things, but don't take responsibility for doing the demanding or the poor outcomes of those demands. Insist on helping and then withdraw that help at the last possible moment. So you're left up shit creek without a paddle, which you knew would happen. Even when you know that's going to happen and you make preparations for it, it's still a hiccup. And then repeatedly wanting to have these conversations/confrontations in which all communications via email are threatening or ugly, and then when we meet in person, everything is kindness and concession, and then the moment we part ways, right back to the threatening, and then wanting to repeat that cycle. All of which being frustrating. Not only if that's frustrating enough, hindering or hindrance to your work enough if it's coming just from one person, but everyone else piling on makes that even worse. And as the original advice giver mentioned, well, there were a number of people who gave advice, but it was all shit advice. There was one woman who was giving very kind advice, but I guess she felt she car crashed and then punched out. I saw that. Not any advice I want to take, but I appreciate the sentiment. The original good advice, phrased in an obnoxious way, referred to me as a lighthouse of exploitation. And that really irritated me, and it's probably because it was 100% correct. And correct also in the needing to assert your way through this sentiment, but not in the everyone will clap and think you're charismatic in the end way. If an aspect of advice smells good, at least to my nose, understand I will be considering it even if other aspects of it are stinky. I get, maybe once a month, I'll get a comment about typology, for instance, that has a good, useful core sentiment, but it's wrapped in stinkiness. The last instance of that on the typology side came from someone I know to be Reddit incarnate, but the point was good, and I have been thinking about it. Anyway, on to the way I implemented this part of this advice and how it played out in this unexpected way. First, that former president started to try to do this cycle again, and we have no time now. Texted me after hours, first withdrawing help, then wanting to have a conversation about the way this organization is run. I blocked his number. I tried to keep things above board, so there's professional reasoning and precedent he set originally for this move. Professional side, if you want to contact me, I'm an employee, I'm not your friend, we don't have a personal connection. You email me during business hours. You don't text me after hours. And then the precedent side, we've had a number of committees over the years. One committee chairman kept pestering me about work stuff after hours. Actually, no, this is going back a little bit. This was the Sphinx from last year. The advice I received from this former president while he was still president was block her number, fuck her. Precedent has been set by the person the precedent will be applied to. Blocked his number, fuck him. And then I spent the next few days doing a lot of work. Now, we had another goddamned meeting planned, and that was the one we attended. Former president starts going into a shtick about how are we going to get all this stuff done. As expected, not pleased with the results secured. And the mood of the board, it felt like they were about to pile on also, but I stood my ground, showed my work. I mean, you should be able... We're surrounded by my work right now. But also, the remainder is almost done, and this is exactly how long it's going to take. And in the days following, that's exactly how long it took. That's how this entire move would have gone if this bullshit hadn't started happening in the middle. And I didn't leave much room for argument in any of that. This is what I've done, this is how I've done it, and there's only a little bit left, and I will close it out the same way I've been doing it. So really, there's no issue. Now, something I've learned about this president is not only will he not take responsibility for things he does or wants done, he also expects people to intuit his desires and do them for him or give them to him without his needing to ask. And his desires are weird because they don't make sense. In fact, I think one of the reasons he stepped down was he was expecting people to beg him not to step down, and then nobody did. That might be why he turned into such a shitter recently. He's always been like this, but when he was in control, and I didn't have a problem with it, because again, that was the way things needed to be, because nobody else would step up, and as long as we did things the way he wanted, didn't work the way I would have wanted them, but it worked well enough. I mean, we were dying. He didn't really accomplish much other than become president and waste money. I think he wanted people to beg him, and then he was deeply, gravely offended nobody did, and probably felt betrayed by me. And that's frustrating because usually when people like this do this, they will leave clear hints they want you to do something. They will signal you properly. And that's annoying, that's shitty, I don't like that either. But it's worse when there are no hints. This entire time, I thought he was getting what he wanted, and I guess it's not what he wanted at all. And I'm also guessing his stepping down, his going through with stepping down, was in his mind the equivalent of making good on a threat, and then all of his negative feelings multiplied when he realized it wasn't a threat to anybody, in fact it was a positive. And this is all key to the way things play out next. I think he wanted people to attack me without his needing to, so he could look like a victim. And then again, nobody did. Tribes people worked this shit out a long time ago. You need a singular authority because everybody else sucks dick. They're stupid, they're destructive, they're self destructive. They'll go wherever the wind is blowing. So, because I left no room for attack, and because he didn't signal attack, or an attack, no attack happened. So, what does he do? He starts picking at other people over stupid shit to get back at them for not intuiting what he wanted. And this actually accomplished two things. One, it pissed other people off for being attacked for stupid reasons. Doesn't feel good, right? And it also demonstrated his inability actually to do anything. Because these board members are not paid. They're older people, they have money, they're volunteering. You really can't threaten them. So he's annoyed them with nothing to hold over their heads. And immediately the mood shifted. These are herd people, these are conflict averse people. But in his tantrum, he moved the target off my head and onto his head. And I don't know what conversations those people had after that meeting, but I know it can't have been positive. I believe in psychic nets or webs. I believe in the noosphere, the collective unconscious. And you can feel when things are changing. Because he ambushed me while I was working today and tried to confront me about how badly I've been mistreating him, how disrespectful I am, how rude I am, how unbelievable this all is. And I know when I'm being rude, I know when I'm being disrespectful, and I know when I'm being mean. I've been none of those things to him. Yet. And I probably won't. Because then he launched into this tirade about how at the end of the year he'll actually step back, but he'll continue to volunteer, which invalidates the last number of conversations we've had, which have been about his stepping back. He's supposed to have stepped back a number of times now, so now, multiple times now, you haven't stepped back. Now you say you're going to step back at the end of the year. What does that even mean? And then you'll continue to volunteer. What does that even mean? But I got 3 hours of sleep last night, and as he's talking and trying to be firm and tough with me, I've looked at only 2 people so far in my life that I can think of the way I looked at him then. It ceased to be anger or frustration. It became sheer bafflement. And I don't mean the, what the fuck am I looking at, or how could you do this? This is a crazy bafflement. I mean, as if you were sitting outside and you saw a tree stand up, walk a few feet to the right, shake its ass, and then replant itself in the ground. That kind of bafflement. And after he was finished, I went right back into... Well, I never left professional mode. Remember when Silvio was counseling Tony, and Tony got in his face and shit on him about being the boss and all this stuff, and then Silvio steps away and says, "You need me for anything else?" It was like that. I ceased to view him as a human being. He stopped registering as a sentience to be regarded as a fellow sentience. It was surreal. The last time this happened was when I was in Jackal's office, and she started crying in front of me, and I felt absolutely nothing. The person I'm looking at, their entire life, all their experiences, their thoughts, their feelings, I'm looking at them the same way you might look at a plant. I understand this thing is alive, but it's so not important, you don't even think, in that moment at least, to register it as something you need to be engaging with in the social arena. It's just a thing in front of you that is, you're told, is alive. And after he was finished, like I said, I went back into, or I stayed in professional mode, and nothing happened. And then he left, and then I spoke with some other people, and the mood totally had shifted into, it's like he just blew away, turned into ash and blew away. Now, I said in the beginning, I'm sure this is a fluke. This is one part of one skirmish in one battle in one war. I'm sure some new strategy will be deployed or employed. I'm sure this little victory won't last, but we won this one. And the way this dynamic is played out fascinates me because I knew nobody would actually care about the results. My getting the work done had nothing to do with, or almost nothing to do with what happened here. That's not the focus. The work isn't the focus at work. The focus is on who gets shit on, who deserves it, not in any righteous, justice, virtue sense of the word, but by deserve I mean who pissed who off, and who is least able or least likely to do anything about it, about getting attacked. I didn't piss the mob off, and I didn't permit any room, at least in this instance, to attack me. But then the guy who is ultimately powerless outside his ability to make people think he could be a problem, but doesn't have any actual power, pissed people off and then demonstrated his inability to do anything. His inability to be a real problem. In his entitled boomer tantrum, he put his head on the chopping block. So I'm safe momentarily. I am sure that will change in a flash, but I managed to get safe not as a result of my actions, because the outcome didn't matter whatsoever, but as a result of performing those actions. And what I learned is, in some cases, you don't need to defeat somebody to win. All you need to do is make yourself a less easy target, less of an exploitation lighthouse, and allow that honor to go to either an easier target who's naturally an easier target, or to someone who will make themselves a target. And I'm super uneasy about all this because I could see this strategy not working in so many other circumstances, but it worked here, and that is the principle I learned. I don't like conflict, I'm not good at conflict, and I need to be careful with conflict for anger and health reasons, but you can sidestep that conflict entirely by manipulating the mob's focus. You don't need to learn how to or develop the ability to protect yourself from the mob. I mean, you could try to do that. Maybe it'll work a little bit, but mobs are powerful. You don't need to do any of that when you keep the focus off of you, and you don't need to stick your neck out to attack somebody or destroy somebody if you can put that focus, the mob's focus, on them, and on them, and have the mob destroy that target for you. I don't totally understand the mechanics yet, but we have bumblefucked our way into some high-level FETE strategies, and I would say I couldn't be happier. Mainly, I'm momentarily relieved, dreading what's coming next, but interested in tampering with these tools, getting my dirty little talons all over them. And then, two last bits. I want to know how to control that registry switch manually. Manually control your ability to stop registering humans as humans. We talk sometimes about the different degrees of INFJs, or the different camps. The ones who, I mean, they all annoy me, but they're all fascinating. The ones who do look at humans as humans and then can be brought to the point of this point that we've described here, versus the ones who are always in that mode with all people at all times. The ones who don't view people as people by default. That is Ultra Instinct FE. When you have total awareness of people's emotions and motivations and understand how to manipulate them while being unaffected by any of it. That's the dream. Fuck accessing and integrating TE. If you give me, even with inferior FE, that ability to disable that reading people as people tool, oh, damn, I could be somebody. And I feel like that's a possibility because it, even though it happens in isolated incidents, and I still don't totally understand what turns that switch off, it's happened and it can happen again. I just need to figure out how to do it. As always, complete difference between being aware of something or understanding something on an abstract level, or even understanding this is something good, this is something desirable, even how it works, versus knowing it and feeling it on a natural level. Completely different things. And then there is the experimentation aspect to all this. Even if this is a fluke, even if the winds change again tomorrow, I am relieved this worked for a few reasons that have nothing to do with work. This is probably a lifelong process, but I am relieved that experimentation worked this time. And I'm relieved not only because experimentation almost never works, you should almost always stick within what you know, but also because it reinforces the larger lifelong principle that experimentation is worthwhile. Because even if you experiment with something, feeling certain of the outcome, if you haven't tried it, you don't know, and you aren't allowing yourself an opportunity to be surprised. As in, with this aspect of this advice I implemented, the part my mind was focused on turned out exactly the way I thought it would. Nobody gave a shit about the results. But by doing this thing anyway, outside forces came in and introduced me to a principle I hadn't thought of that will probably make other aspects of my life easier going forward if I can work on them. Again, we talk about learning new things. We are almost never learning new things by going out and learning new things. We learn new things by iterating on one thing so hard and so frequently, we open up new little pocket universes within this thing. We're almost never going out and getting new stuff. Why am I obsessed with ENTJs? Because if you're an INTP and you have a good ENTJ in your life, they will do this for you. Now, for life purposes, you should be doing this yourself and exposing yourself to it and developing that exposure tolerance, but it's really nice having someone around who won't just do it for you, but likes doing it and is good at it, finding things for you to iterate on. But it reminds me of that bar I went to when I was... That's one of the few things in my life I'm very proud of, even though it was dangerous. It shouldn't be dangerous, but it was horribly dangerous. Going around and forcing yourself to introduce yourself to strangers. I am very happy with myself that I did that. Part of that process was going to this local bar when I was in university alone, not knowing what to do, and I sat out in the car for a while, terrified. And I think I was texting that Russian when it was happening. Yeah, I was. And I think I was texting somebody else too. Anyway, went in, totally expecting this to be a bomb and a flub, a disaster at worst, and then it turned out to be a core positive memory, and I have very few positive memories. At least in the field of experimentation. I have positive memories elsewhere. I don't have many positive memories or experiences with experimenting and trying shit that I don't know for sure will work. I'm relieved this principle has been reinforced again, lifelong principle reinforced again, even if it's in a small way, even if it is a fluke. Because it means you aren't trapped. You might be in a situation that's so bad, you know no path you can take will lead you to safety, and you can probably be right about all those paths, but what you weren't considering was there might be a safe place circumstance will tackle you into while you're walking down one of these certainly bad paths. And that's what happened here. Circumstance tackled me into a fluke win that illuminated me to a principle that I might be able to use in the future. And that experimentation principle is hard to remember because it does not work so often, but it can. There are possibilities out there you haven't thought of and won't think of. These aren't things you build or invent or do. They are experiences you open yourself to having. And then you can start thinking again. And that doesn't mean go out and experiment willy-nilly, especially if you're a person who is trained cognitively or developed cognitively to resist experimentation. If you feel that way, you probably feel that way for a good reason, but it's an option. You can open yourself to the unknown when you feel trapped, and something good might come out of the ether and bestow upon you tools you never could have invented yourself, or lead you into safe clearings you never would have found on your own. And that's important to me, not only for the utility, but also because feeling trapped is one of my biggest fears. That fear probably got a lot worse with the legal stuff, feeling utterly trapped by humanity. You might be able to break out of your prison if you don't resign yourself to it. It's highly unlikely while you are making your prison break for meteorites to fall all at once and do the world a favor and exterminate all the cops chasing you, but it could happen. And sometimes it does happen. And there are ways out of your situation and of yourself that don't involve or don't come out of the barrel of a gun. Not that you have the willpower to do that, or not that you would. CIA mentioned at the beginning of this video, none of us are suicidal, all of us are in good heart health, all of us are wonderful swimmers, so on and so forth. That's such a big fear to me. Not just the CIA or feeling trapped in a situation, but also feeling trapped in your identity. I feel trapped most of the time. I never want to feel utterly trapped in not just a situation, but also a life, an identity, an ego that I am not happy with. Because that's something you can't escape. You can't run away from. And that is why I am so relieved possibility, even minimal possibility, exists. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.